وَيُرَدِّدُهُ وَيَبْكِ. He began to read it, introspect and cry. And he said, Umar, I salute your vision. On one hand, your letter is reprimanding me and rebuking me, but essentially it is giving me a glimpse of hope. نَزَعَ فَأَحْسَنَ نَزَعَ. He repents and becomes one of the most rehabilitated youth that the world has ever seen till this day. Who can tell me why? In England, you should be able to. In England, all of you should be able to. How many of you have ever taken money from the welfare system? MashaAllah, one truthful brother. This individual orchestrated the welfare system that you and I, 1400 years later, continue to benefit from in the 21st century while living in the United Kingdom. He repents, rehabilitates himself, and look at what he produces. A system that the world continues to benefit from 1400 years later. This is the power of providing a helping hand.
So what was his name?
I don't remember his name. I'm trying to recall his name. Inshallah. Maybe before we leave tonight, I will remember his name. We can Google it. Maybe Maulana Kabiruddin can tell us. And this is when the famous statement of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh was recorded and documented. In the following session, when this person had come to his senses and rehabilitated himself, he sat him next to his seat as he addressed the thousands of people. And he said to them words of advice that need to be carved in stone and hanged in every home of a Muslim. إِذَا رَأَيْتُمْ أَخَلَّكُمْ زَلَّ زَلَّةً فَسَدِّدُوهُ وَوَثِّقُوهُ وَلَا تَكُونُوا أَعْوَانًا لِلشَّيْطَانِ عَلَيْهِ. Famous statement of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. To loosely translate it, he said to the people, when you find one of your own brothers down in the dumps, and their back is against the wall, and the world is caving in, stand up to rescue them. For their fall is the collapse of an entire ummah, but rescuing them is the deliverance of the entire ummah. إِذَا رَأَيْتُمْ أَخَلَّكُمْ زَلَّ زَلَّةً فَسَدِّدُوهُ وَوَثِّقُوهُ وَلَا تَكُونُوا أَعْوَانًا لِلشَّيْطَانِ. When you find one of your very own brothers down in the dumps, stand up to rescue them. For their fall is the collapse of an entire nation. And rescuing them is the deliverance of an entire nation. Today, how many cries of the members of the Muslim Ummah are falling on deaf ears while we continue to live our lives oblivious to the plight and the reality? How many are suffering? Globally and locally. And suffering doesn't come in one specific category. It is in all different types of shapes and circumstances. Look at the power of being there for someone who is going through a crisis. Umar radiallahu anh, imagine if he had taken the advice of that man. And how many times have we done this in the community? Oh man, he's a lost cause, forget about it. Let's not even discuss him. And then 10 years later, you find out that the man jumped off a bridge somewhere and committed suicide. And then you put your hand on your forehead and you say, oh man, we should have done something. Everyone has that potential within them, only if it is tapped. The Arabic proverb said it best, صَبْرُكَ فِي مُصِيبَتِ خَيْرٌ مِّن جَزْعِكَ وَجَزْعُكَ فِي مُصِيبَةِ أَخِيكَ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَبْرِكَ. It is better for you to persevere over your own pain and agony than for you to moan and groan. And it is better for you to moan and groan over the pain and agony of others than for you to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. Today, over the most trivial of matters, we want to make an abundant amount of noise. Why? Because my rights have been violated and infringed upon, but I am dead silent. at the agony of my fellow brethren. And when this becomes the foresight, the building blocks and the vision of not just the Muslims, but by extension, humanity, that I could persevere over my own pain, but it hurts me and it bothers me to see someone else go through a crisis, then this alone will instantly bring about a transformation in the society that we have chosen to live in. Here's an amazing example of this that comes to mind. How many of you have heard of the companion Bashir bin Aqraba? MashaAllah. Who was he? He was a renowned companion. One of the most dearest and nearest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To contextualize it, when he moved to Medina, he had a few young siblings and they were raised by a single father. He lost his mother after she had given birth to the youngest of his sisters. So they moved to Medina, and that very day, the call of an expedition is made and the father joins the ranks of the Muslim army. It was a custom back then to welcome your loved ones home, and they would do this on the outskirts of Medina after an expedition, after a battle. So he, Bashir bin Aqraba, 8-9 years of age, he goes and he joins these individuals who are strangers to him. And he goes to the outskirts of Medina. He's young and short. He climbs a huge rock and he's looking right and he's looking left, trying to identify the site of, I think it stopped recording, huh? So we'll stop talking.
No, it's alright.
We'll end with this example, inshallah. He's young and short. He's looking right and left, trying to sight the presence of his father, and he doesn't see him. People are coming back in the multitudes. It's about to get dark. The sun is almost about to set. He goes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He nudges his knee like this and he says, Ya Rasulullah, ماذا فعل أبي? I'm looking for my daddy. I know you're busy and occupied with other important things, but I've been standing on a rock, looking right and left for hours. And it seems like almost everyone has returned. Have you seen my father anywhere? ماذا فعل أبي يا رسول الله? Where is my daddy? This moment was too painful for the Prophet ﷺ to digest. So modestly, gently, respectfully, he ignores the boy, turns around and shows him his back. A child being a child, he goes back to that rock and he's looking right and he's looking left, and he sees now all the injured ones are trickling in one by one. And then all of a sudden the sun sets. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. You can't hear anyone coming back. He comes back to the Prophet ﷺ with a crack in his voice, tears trickling down his cheek. He grabs hold of the Prophet's knee. He shakes it and he says, Ya Rasulullah, ماذا فعل أبي? Where is my father? فاستكبر وبكى. No one saw the Prophet profusely cry ever in his entire life than he did in these moments. Not even when Khadija passed away. Not even when Abu Talib passed away. He falls on his knees. He begins to profusely cry. And then he hugs Bashir bin Aqraba, 8-9-year-old child. Hugs him tight. And Bashir makes mention of this entire story. And he says something amazing. He says, while in those moments I had lost all hope, but the following words of the Prophet ﷺ gave me so much confidence that I became one of the greatest human beings and the most dearest and nearest companions of the Prophet ﷺ. What were those words that the Prophet whispered to him in his ear? أَمَا تَرْضَى يَا بَشِيرٌ أَن يَكُونَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ أَبَاكَ وَعَائِشَةُ أُمُّكَ. Do you not desire and please from these moments onwards that I, the Prophet of God, stand in the shoes of your father and my wife Aisha stand in the shoes of your mother. أما ترضى يا بشير أن يكون رسول الله أباك وعائشة أمك. Do you not wish and desire from these moments onwards that I, the Prophet of Allah, stand in the shoes of your father, and my wife Aisha stand in the shoes of your mother? The story is long. It's like in the books of history. It's referenced in Sahih al-Bukhari. About 20 pages long. You see how successful Bashir becomes because someone was there for him. Someone provided that helping hand. It impacted his life. It gave him the confidence that he needed. At the age of 8, imagine becoming the single guardian of young sisters. Even when he got married, the Prophet had asked him, what kind of wife did you get? Is she a virgin or was she married previously? He's having a discourse with him. He says, Ya Rasulullah, you're messing with me. But just for your, just to answer your question and your curiosity, I married a non-virgin, meaning she was married before and she's older than me. He said, Ya Bashir, come on, you could have married someone younger than you and enjoyed the sentiments of life, Ya Bashir. He says, no, Ya Rasulullah, you just don't get it. I needed to marry a woman that would not only be a wife to me, but also a mother to my sisters. This man had his priorities straight in life. He had his compass set in the right direction. But he became that person only because someone was there for him. Someone provided him that helping hand. وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَلِأَنفُسِكُمْ. This is the message tonight. So aspire to inspire before you expire. Aspire to inspire before you expire. A man by the name of William Penn. Anyone know American history? Anyone care to know American history? William Penn, what was the first capital? Where was the first capital? Or what state was the first capital? What city in America? Anyone? Take a guess.
Texas.
Texas? Texas till this day want to be its own country. If you go to Texas, they don't say I'm American. Did you know that? They say I'm Texan. You don't see American flags. You see Texan flags. It's a nice place to be. Philadelphia, first capital of the nation. The man who founded the state where Philadelphia is, the state is known as Pennsylvania. He goes by the name of William Penn. He said something profound. I expect to pass through this world only but once. Any good, therefore, that I could do, or any kindness that I could show to any fellow creature, let me not differ or neglect it, for I shall never ever pass through this way ever again. I expect to pass through this world only but once. Any good, therefore, that I could do, or any kindness that I could show to any fellow creature, let me not differ or neglect it, for I shall never ever pass through this way ever again. Profound words. It reminds me of another statement of a great muhaddith who was also a politician, and he goes by the name of Mufti Mahmud Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayh. Any of you heard of his name? A great muhaddith, a great philanthropist, a great politician. One day he was sitting with his disciples and students in the masjid, and a beggar walked in and started asking for money. So the students remained focused on the dars, but the sheikh took out his wallet and he counted 200 rupees. Imagine this. And he called them and he says, here you go. 200 rupees for you to feed yourself and your family. And the man left. After some moments, the students and the disciples of the sheikh said, with all due respect, we admire your generosity, but you gave the man 200 rupees when you could have given him 20 or 2, and he would have been satisfied and he would have left. By giving him 200 rupees, आप इनके आदत को खराब कर रहे हो. You are spoiling his habit, and he's gonna come and come and come again and again. At that juncture, the Sheikh said something that when I read it for the first time, it gave me goosebumps, and it made the hair on my body stand straight. And as a Pathan and a hairy man, that's a very scary scene. What were the words that he said to his students? He said, जब मैं इसको देने लगा तो ज़हन में एक सोच आई कि शुक्र है अल्लाह का कि आज हम देने वालों में से है और लेने वालों में से नहीं है. He said, as I was about to dispense and dish out my charity to the man, suddenly I had a thought that engraved my mind, and I thanked Allah, saying to myself that I am truly grateful to Him, for today I am among those who can dispense charity, and that I am not on the receiving end of charity. Today, no matter our lives and the circumstances within our lives, Allah has given us something, and we could utilize those qualities that He has blessed us with and be there for someone. Whether they're going through a crisis in their marriage, whether they're going through a crisis mentally, questioning their gender maybe, it's happening. Whether they are addicted to alcohol or drugs, it's happening within our community. Whether it's a brother who's addicted to pornography, whether it's being there for someone among the Rohingyas or the Syrians or the Yemenis, and the list goes on. Identify someone who is in need and tap their life in a positive way. Give them a shoulder to lean on. Provide them a helping hand. And you will see that by doing so, Allah comes to your aid. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. لا يظلمه ولا يسلمه. ومن كان في حاجة أخيه كان الله في حاجة. ومن يسر على محسن يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة. That your brother, a Muslim, is a fellow brethren to you. You do not harm him, but most importantly and essentially, you do not allow him to fall in a predicament by means of which he or she shall be harmed. By fulfilling their needs, Allah fulfills your needs. By coming to their aid and assistance, Allah comes to your aid and assistance in this life and in the hereafter. I'll end with this one hadith that comes to mind. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he once said to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, إدخال السرور على قلب المؤمن. Being there for someone in need is a tool that puts a smile on the heart of the one who is needy. You know, someone said it amazingly, that you will not acquire the reward of dispensing charity unless you truly believe that you are more in need of the reward than the poor person is in need of the charity. So he said, one of the greatest things that you could do is to put a smile on the heart of someone who's going through a crisis. And then he goes on to say to the Sahaba, Inna lil masakina dawla. Those who are going through a crisis, masakin, not just the poor, but those who are going through a crisis in life, masakin. If you come to their aid, he says, on the day of judgment, they will have dawla. Dawla, what is dawla? Dawla is kingdom. What does kingdom mean? Kingdom means access. Over here, it's referring to direct access to Jannah with the ability to take with them whomsoever they desire. إن للمساكين دولة انظروا من أطعمكم في الله اللقمة. They will be said, they would be told and informed, go and search for those who gave you a morsel to chew on when you had no food. أو سقاكم شربا. Those who search for those who quench your thirst. أو كسى ثوبا. Search for those who clothe your body. فأدخلوه الجنة. And enter with them in Jannah. Be there for others. And Allah will be there for you. We want Allah in our lives. Be there for someone who's going through a crisis. I hope these words will resonate as a means of inspiration for one and all. Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he said something rather thought-provoking. How foolish is man? What did he say? How foolish is man? He amasses wealth upon wealth. In the interim, he loses his health. And then in order to regain his health, he loses his wealth. He destroys the present, worrying about the future. Destroys the future, weeping, recalling the mistakes of the past. Lives as though he shall never die. Tragically, he dies wishing he never lived. So I hope these words resonate with you as a means of inspiration and will motivate you to stand up and be proactive like the great Khalifa Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. Aisha radiallahu anha would say something amazing. اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا واعمل لآخرتك كأنك تموت غدا. Do for your worldly affair as though you are to live forever, but plan for the hereafter as though you are to die tomorrow. Jazakumullah khairan for the opportunity. Forgive me for my shortcomings, and hopefully we'll see you soon, inshallah. Sure.
What's the Sahaba called? Do you know the drunk one? Is it Al-Numayn Ibn Amr?
Al-Numayn Ibn Ahmed. Yes. Jazakallah khair.
Because he's the one that fought the battle as well, yeah?
He also did. He googled it, huh? MashaAllah.
Oh, yeah.
Jazakallah khairan. Barakallah feekum.
This is one of
Jazakallah khairan.
the express our gratitude to Sheikh, mashallah.
Barakallah
Sheikh,
feekum.
mashallah, landed this morning from the United States and he's going to Manchester tomorrow. He's here for 1 week. And kind of I invited him, please come to Hafs and enlighten our souls. Alhamdulillah, we all feel spiritually enhanced, mashallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Barakallahu feekum. Allah give you more barakah, inshallah. And whenever you visit UK, do visit us, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, brothers.
The Q&A or?
Yeah, there could be a Q&A if you want. No problem, inshallah.
Al-Numayn Ibn Amr.
If there isn't any questions,
I have one question.
Sure.
Brother, you mentioned
I don't know if I'll have an answer for you, but you can ask your question.
so you gave the example of the slave girl that was freed by Allah.
Thuwayba.
And through the action of Allah, his punishment in the hereafter is being reduced.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that was exceptional to Abu Lahab? Because the other example you gave of Uthman ibn Talha, by way of his good deeds, he became Muslim.
We see the trend. So Ibn Kathir has referenced this, and we see the trend of this. So, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, there's a famous story for which the surah takes his name. Which is which story, guys? The story about Bani Israel and the man dying, and they are commanded by Allah to do X, Y, and Z to identify the perpetrator, the murderer. So they question Allah. And then this whole topic of the description of the cow is highlighted in the Quran, right? I'm not going to go through the ayat. It's a long discussion. Allah tells them, they come back with a question. Allah tells them, they come back with a counter. Allah tells them, they come back with a counter. And then they have a hard time to find that cow. But Allah knows everything. And He deliberately planned this. So they go in search for this cow. Ibn Kathir has mentioned this, and it's authentic. They go in search for this cow, and in some foreign far land, they find the cow being milked and looked after by a farmer who has 1 or 2 sheep and this cow. So they say to him, we need to buy this from you, and we really desperately need this. We will pay anything for it. So the man says, look, I don't know what it is that you've done and why you desperately need this, cow which barely gives milk, but this is my livelihood. And for 55 years, I've been doing the khidmah of my mother, who is unable to walk, talk, and even see. I look after her, I bathe her, I clean her, I put her to bed, I wake her up, all of this stuff. And he says, this is my only means of income. Right? They said, no matter what it takes, we'll give you an X amount of gold. He said, no, I cannot give it to you. They said, well, we'll double it, we'll triple it. And I forget the amount that Ibn Kathir has referenced. There's a couple of differences of opinion. The bottom line is it was an excessive amount of gold.
The weight of the cow.
The weight of the cow, right? But on one occasion, it was like an X amount of weight of the cow. So it was the weight of the cow times by something. And then the man receives this gold, and now, mashallah, he opens an entire enterprise that didn't only benefit him, but his entire family and generations to come. Right? And this, Ibn Kathir makes mention, is as a result of his good deed towards his mother. So it's not just exclusive for Uthman ibn Talha. The punishment in the hereafter may or may not be exclusive to Abu Lahab. It could be to others too. And Allah knows best. Right? There are a few examples of it that we learn from the Sunnah. Right? Some authentic and some otherwise. But Allah knows best. Right? One thing we do know is فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Right? That verily, most certainly, without a doubt, the reward of man will not go wasted. It will mature. It will produce. I'll give you another example very quickly. It's getting late. In the hadith, we learn, I think it's in Ibn Majah, of a story of two young men. They met up at a mall, right? At a shopping center, the bazaar, back then, whatever it was. And people were in ghafla. That's the terminology used in the hadith. They were engaged in lying, cheating, deceiving, misusing the eyes, the ears. And therefore one of them said to the other, look, everything is happening here but the dhikr of Allah. So now why don't we be creative? They were not practicing brothers, right? They stepped aside. They engaged in the dhikr of Allah for a few short moments. Life moved on. They grew up, had married, had family, and they died. One of them passed away before the other and came in the dream of the other brother who was living. And he was asked, how is your circumstances in the hereafter? And he said, I lived a terrible life. I was going through a horrendous circumstance, just like Abu Lahab. However,
they died as Muslims, right?
Huh?
They died as Muslims.
They died as Muslims, right? But they lived a life of disobedience. And the individual says to the one who is alive in his dream, and this, by the way, is recorded in Ibn Majah, that I was doomed to the fire of hell. Like Allah had said, okay, man, when we do his hisab, the angel said, khalas, he's going to the fire of hell. But there was this one good deed that we conducted together. When there was so much ghafla, we did this one good deed. And this was so pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that as a result of it, Allah had forgiven me and placed me into Jannah. And I await your arrival because it was your initiation. Right? I'll end with this final thought that comes to mind. And we'll wrap it up with an ayah of the Quran. And let's reflect on this ayah with tafakkur and tadabbur, as Allah commands of us. What is the ayah that we recite often at Eid al-Adha? Which is the famous ayah? لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. It is not the flesh nor the blood that reaches the proximity of Allah. Rather, it is the motivation by which you apply that impresses Allah. That's how I like to do tafakkur upon this ayah and tadabbur. Reflect and contemplate. It is not the flesh nor the blood that reaches the proximity of Allah, but it is the motivation by which you apply that impresses Allah. And look at the story of Abu Dahda. Right? He hears the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة. Who will give a goodly loan to Allah? And then he is willing to give 2 gardens. And the Prophet says, keep one garden for provision, give the other for the sake of Allah. He says, if that is the case, then I will give the better of the 2. By the motivation by which you imply or apply. Right? That impresses Allah. And then the Prophet said, well, if this is the case, definitely Jannah is for you and your family. So sometimes we know not the sincerity that we have in the good deeds that we conduct are so powerful to the extent that they may very well, because it is a declaration of the Quran. Inna la nudi'u ajra man ahsana amala. That verily, most certainly, without a doubt, Allah says, Inna, that our good deeds will not go wasted. Meaning we would either receive the reward in this life and in the hereafter, or alternatively a reward would await for us in the hereafter. I think Sheikh Kabiruddin is wanting to shut the place down, inshallah, for the night. We'll see you guys at the hookah lounge.